right, thank you for being with me today. I hope you all been following the show and know that I bring some interesting guests in. Today, my guest is very interesting in coming at sharing God's love in the world in a different way. I've got Nicholas Burtner with me, who's an advocate of what's called permaculture, which is really a radical way of thinking about living and interacting with the world. Isn't that right? Good to have you today.
Thanks so much, David. I really appreciate you bringing me on your show.
Good deal. So tell everybody, what in the world is permaculture? I mean, it's a great sounding name, but what does it really mean?
Yeah, David, it's very difficult to have a short conversation about permaculture, but I'll do my best. Permaculture is a design system that works with nature to provide all living needs. So if we tell somebody that, though, it says, you know, where's the snake oil bottle that you're selling me, right? So we could look at it also like university. So where university, it has all these different departments, right? Sociology, anthropology, biology, architecture, hydrology of landscape. But in university, each department has a dean, and every dean is fighting the other deans for money and students. Where permaculture has all these same ologies, right? All the ologies. But it's a cohesion. It puts them together. So it's just a word. Permaculture is just a word that is a myriad of disciplines that work together for human settlement and for humans that also benefits creation.
Well, and that's a pretty good synopsis of it. So we're really talking about living systems, agriculture, home sites, everything necessary to live a good, happy life. And this can be done in a rural setting or partially in an urban setting, right?
Absolutely. You're exactly right. So it combines agriculture with community, with wildlife conservation, with natural resource conservation. Really, it's the future of humanity, right? I mean, if we look at our current systems today, we've got a finite number of resources on the planet with an infinite growth model, right? At some point in time, that's a rock and a hard place.
Right.
Where we kind of just step in and say, okay, what makes a lot more sense for humans, right? If you were an alien, maybe flying in a spacecraft across the galaxies and you saw Earth, you may think that we're a desertifying species, right? Agriculture, the way it currently is done today, you know, just absolutely rips ecosystems and soil complexes apart. And you know, so there's opportunity right here, and then we can come in and say, okay, how can we, you know, maybe scale down, downshift, and say, okay, we can now design systems that work with nature rather than ripping them apart, right? Working with forest ecology, prairie ecology, aquaculture. A good example is when you look at a forest, you can see a forest, and at least for me, I would look at a forest and it looked absolutely chaotic. But really, God's not chaotic, right? There's order in God, right?
Right.
So, for example, this forest, you know, we have overstory, understory, shrub layer, herbaceous layer, ground cover, rhizosphere, and the vertical layer. So we've got like 7 layers, which is kind of a holy number too, right? There's like 7 layers. So it's now no longer a chaos. There's order to it. And once we kind of just step back and observe creation, we can then build agriculture and human settlement models based upon that make a lot more sense for humans.
Well, and just to be clear to the audience, you're a really strong Christian, and Christ is your focus in life. And so you're not coming at this from a secular, I mean, you look at you and, you know, somebody could think, oh, this is kind of a hippie alternative guy. Why did David bring this guy on my show?
Got it, yeah.
But you're really coming from a really strong love of God focus and loving God's creation and being good stewards of what God's bounty has given us, right?
David, what is a shepherd to do?
Look after the sheep.
Yeah, right. Do you love me, as Jesus says, right? Do you love me, right? Tend my flock, right? You know, if we even look back into Genesis, there was one commandment, right? Don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. after we got kicked out of Eden, then it was, man, because of you, all the ground is cursed. By the sweat of your brow, you'll have to work through the thorns and thistles, right? So God's first commandment was what to humans out of Eden? It was
in relationship with Him.
It would be in relationship with Him and work the land, right? So this is something God has already predispositioned us to do. Yeah, so absolutely. I'm pretty much a pastor with no piece of paper. But really, the School of Permaculture, which I'm the director of, its primary directive is to love and help as many people as possible. It's to love and if I knew a better way, like that we can tangibly help people, I would be doing it. Right? And we do aid work. We were in Haiti a few years ago, and we love orphans, and both afar and here locally, right? So it's definitely Christ-centered when it comes through the School of Permaculture and comes through me.
And so if people are interested in learning more about permaculture, you've got a great website and some great information, and teach some really good class, introductory and master's level classes, and are doing some good stuff, right? Yes,
thanks. It is the schoolofpermaculture.com. There is a couple of rules. We have a really good time and learning. There's a lot about natural, the way God created things that is really kind of profound and mind-blowing. So it's really all about loving people, creating systems and habitat for people that will ultimately give them something they can pass on to their legacy and their bloodline.
Well, I know that's going to be exciting, and I've, taken a little bit of work in the permaculture field. I've got the design book that I haven't read altogether. But
don't feel bad, it's a hard one to read.
Yeah, it's a really big, meaty book, but there's a lot of introductory material. But I've talked a little bit about sustainability in the world and being sustainable and being a society that is going to be able to last until the second coming. Because we don't know when the second coming is coming. We don't need to live like it's coming tomorrow by depleting all the Earth's resources. We're wiping away the topsoil from the world. And like you said, desertifying the world, which is...
David, I get hit on both sides of the coin. Kind of the first people who, the first group of people that took on permaculture. And permaculture is, it's secular. It's based on scientific evidence, okay? It's secular, but the first kind of group that took it were probably more pagan in their deal. So once I came along and I'm over here throwing Jesus around like there's no tomorrow, right? Obviously, that group kind of looks down upon that. And then so our work brings us into the world, which Jesus is all about. Jesus is about, he's not about staying in our Christian bubble. He's going out and love people, right? So,
well, you're doing evangelism by interacting with people that have spirituality or pagan beliefs and helping show them that God's love is the path.
God said, love the Lord your God with what? All your heart, your mind, your soul, and your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus is about love.
Well, and I talk about loving your neighbors yourself, and the best way to love your neighbors yourself is to do good works in the world and help your neighbor have a better life.
Wow. I couldn't have said it better. We get hit from the Christian side, though, too, David. I mean, because we are out into the secular world, they're like, I can't believe you would do that, And so it's a very fine line that we are walking in this permaculture walk. But, hey, following Jesus he never said it was going to be easy, right? There was going to be persecution. And we just try our best to love people. We just really want to love them.
Well, that's the way to bring people to Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, people say, it's hard to be an evangelist. Well, you don't have to be an overt evangelist. What you have to be is overtly loving other people and letting them see that love coming through you and saying, gosh, this is a great person. I'd really like to follow on what he's doing. And I love his philosophy, and I love that he accepts Jesus and makes him the fountain.
Praise the Lord, David. I mean, that's exactly right. That's what I believe. That's what God changes the heart of people, right? I'm not the most cunning creature, praise the Lord, right? I can't, trick somebody in with cleverness of speech to change their heart. Only God can change their heart, right? But what can I do? What God told me to do, which is love people, right, in all aspects. And sometimes that's harder than other times. Let's just be real, right? Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. Praise Jesus.
Yeah. So if you'd like to learn more about permaculture, please do go to their website. Get on their email list. He sends out some great emails that are always illuminating and can share some other resources with you. If you like to do things in gardening, permaculture has a way to garden without much work. Let the earth work for you instead of working against the world. Isn't that really kind of one of the principles is let God's creation do the work?
Absolutely. Here's a really good example for that. Did you know that there are plants? We'll talk about two topics here. There are plants that are fertilizer when they grow. So obviously there's legumes, which fix atmospheric nitrogen into the soil with a symbiotic relationship with a bacteria called rhizobium. But there's also other plants that mine minerals, right? Does it way better than humans ever could. So by planting the appropriate perennial and annual species around your food growing species, you have an automatic fertilization happening every time it rains. So if that's not amazing enough, I tell you, God, He has an awesome sense of design. Right? You can plant, say, kale out in your garden. And you look at that kale, and especially if you're in the suburbs, because we got gardens all over the suburbs, and you'll just see kale just get devoured by the cabbage looper. Just a little green caterpillar, I tell you, that thing just devoured, and he's camouflage. Well, so what most people do is they go out and get a chemical, right? And we won't get into the whole rabbit hole of what chemicals do to the human body, but they go do that, and they try to kill it, and then you're ingesting chemicals. Well, if you surround your garden with something, we call them support species, but there's a company called Native American Seeds. You can go buy perennial native wildflowers, sprinkle the seeds around your garden, not in the garden, around it. And over the next year, they'll pop up and they're perennial. You'll have this ecosystem now. And what does an ecosystem do? It attracts beneficials. So there are insects in the world. Like, for example, here in our local climate, there's the paper wasp. You've seen them all up under eaves. It kind of looks like a little umbrella. They got holes all in them. The red, the hornet, the yellow jackets, they're in this family. So we get scared of them. Like, oh my goodness. But
I'm scared of them.
Well, this will help you. So this is amazing. This is how awesome God is. When that cabbage looper bites into that kale, he bites it, and that kale screams. Now, we can't hear it because it screams in what's called a pheromone. It releases an invisible to the human eye pheromone into the air. Well, the wasp comes over and goes, boom, I could see that. And it works in a relationship.
It's seeing the infrared.
It sees it. That's right.
Sees the smell.
Exactly, which we can't do, but God created.
We don't see in the infrared, but bugs do.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So the second primary protein source for wasp is pollen. So all the wildflowers are attracting those wasps because of pollen. But the primary source for those wasps is meat. So that kale sent up that signal. That wasp comes over, it cleans every leaf looking for that caterpillar, chews it up in a little pellet, takes it to its babies. Who would have thought? No chemicals needed. Understanding God's design.
Wow. So the wasp, which I hate wasps, I've bought wasp spray by the can. Wasps be gone. You're saying that wasps serve a vital purpose in God's wonderful plan for an ecosystem that works.
Absolutely.
So having a wasp nest near your garden gives you these predators to take care of the evil cabbage looper.
And all types, tomato hornworms. We can, I love the study of entomology for whatever reason. I'm very fascinated by it. But ladybugs, lacewings, praying mantis, and even the little instars are the nymph stages of these animals, are voracious predators and parasitoids of these pests that plague your garden. Yeah.
So Nicholas is really a man of many studies, and that's kind of like permaculture, this thing. It's so broad that you can focus on whatever area really interests you.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, they say the more you know, the more you don't know. Some people, not myself, but some people call me an expert. What does that tell you?
I just don't know how much there is to know.
Exactly, right. It's very humbling, right? There's no hubris in it whatsoever. There's so much that all of us can just learn from observation, and we only see a glimpse of it at a certain time period. God knows it all. God definitely knows it all. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really great, the work you're doing in the world. And, you know, doing God's work doesn't just mean sharing God's love. It means doing things to make the world a better place for your fellow man, encouraging people to be sustainable. You know, I want to get Nicholas involved with the Greater Dallas Coalition, which I talk about a lot, and really networking and helping South Dallas achieve success. And I think there's really a role for small-scale permaculture on a lot of these vacant lots and a lot of this land that's run down. That's, you know, we're living in an urban desert where there's no food, no grocery stores in many of these communities, and they really need to go back to producing their own food. There's some people doing that, such as Bonton Farms and some others, but there's a need for more expansion of that. And coming to our monthly meetings would be great. Please go to the website. We'd love to have you donate. We'd love to have you reach out to us and get involved in loving your neighbor in that way. Of course, it'd be great for you to get in touch with Nicholas and get on his email list. Come to one of his classes. He has introductory classes that are very informative. He's got an urban garden that they use as a teaching site, and it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. So when's your next introductory meeting coming up?
You know, you would ask me that one, and I wouldn't know. If you go to schoolofpermaculture.com, and under the events section, we have a list of different classes there, and we've got introductions, we've got 12-day classes. Here, March 17th, though, David, we have a permaculture gardening class. And permaculture gardening is very different than traditional and even organic gardening. It's very cyclical in the events that happen, and we would love to have you come, spend a couple of days with us, install this, and just get loved on while you're learning some of God's goodness.
So good. Well, so that's an opportunity coming up. That'll be great. And hopefully some of our viewers are moved by the idea of really a whole different kind of gardening that's a lot less trouble, because you're not fighting nature, you're working with nature, right? And letting the system work for you.
Well, we look at it, you know, this makes a lot of sense. God created everything first, and then he created man, right? So there's already a system that already works really, really well without human interjection. So we come along, and it's a little, you know, don't get me wrong, we love our neighbor, but it's a little stand on the shoulders of egotism that says, I'm going to build a system, and I'm going to feel really good about it, call it agriculture, and make a ton of money, and at the same time destroying God's creation and harming people, right? It harms people. And we're not even talking about the enslavement of Mexicans in Southern California. So that's one way to do it, right? There's that. Or we can say, God already knows. Why don't we just slow down, watch what he's doing, and mimic that way? Yeah. That's a much better way for human settlement. In my opinion, you'd probably agree with me.
Well, yeah. No, I think, you know, one of the tragedies we have in this country is that we exploit the resources of the country, but we also exploit those who extract the resources we exploit the farmer, we exploit the farm worker, and don't allow them to make a good living and live comfortably while they do vital work for our society. You know, I mean, you know, I was a rancher for many years, and I told people I was feeding America below cost. It was a charity, you know. I wasn't getting a return on my equity. I wasn't getting a return on my labor. I was out there working myself to death to feed America, to provide food for hundreds or thousands of people, and not getting anything net for my work.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for your contribution. But at the same time, you're not alone. What most people don't realize is that the food you buy in the grocery store is an illusion of cheapness. It costs way more, and your tax dollars and federal subsidies commodify food to make it cheap. That's not the real cost of food. Right?
Well, and the lack of health that comes from having commodities that are devoid of the essential nutrition that's necessary to support life, because they've altered the chemistry of the food, they've altered the DNA of the food to produce more volume.
If we have on the School of Permaculture's website, we have a little article called the 18 Skills Everybody Should Know. If you have a second, check that out. But this is real simple. The way we make pharmaceutical drugs is there's only two ways to do it. You extract constituents from either plants or hormones, which come from either plants or animals. So a plant has hundreds of what's called constituents within inside of it. So when you take a plant and then you take it into a laboratory and you extract one constituent, then you concentrate it, that's how you get a pharmaceutical drug. That doesn't happen in nature. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm all about modern day medicine at the right time. The problem is today, everything, the moment you walk into the physician, I got a pill for that. The food that we're eating is laced with chemicals. I mean, I look at it and I'm like, no wonder people are shooting up schools. We're literally on drugs. This isn't a lie. This is true. We are on, glyphosate will mess you up. So, you ever seen that movie X-Men? You heard about it at least?
Yeah.
So there's this guy on there called Wolverine. He gets hit, he heals. You know what? You do too. We just do it slower. And God created us in such a way that if we do what He said, work the land, right? Work the land, He'll provide. That we can now ingest His creation, help our bodies heal, help the land heal, right? And do it in such a way, David, where we just won't be sick anymore.
Well, that's a powerful talk, and certainly the nutrition of modern foods has gone down. The epidemic is that people are hungry and never satisfied, so they overeat, get obese. We have, this twin tragedy of obesity as well as hunger among the poor and needy. Many of the people, the Greater Dallas Coalition networks and supports, are really working to fight that obesity and incredible hunger that's out there in the world, and not having access to quality resources. So,
permaculture can definitely help in those areas. We would, perhaps some of the students who are involved in that, maybe they can get donations to come over to the School of Permaculture and come through some of our programs. We're here to love people. So let's see what we can do.
Yeah, well, that'd be great. So, wow, this has really been an exciting, lesson, and I hope you'll explore permaculture. If you just tuned in, permaculture is a fantastic, multidisciplinary way of creating sustainable life for both humans and animals, and having it all work together in harmony. And I don't know if you got to hear the fantastic story about the wasps killing the caterpillars that eat your plants, but learning to work with nature instead of fighting nature just makes everything work so much easier. And I tried to fight nature a lot, and I've, bought a lot of chemicals, sprayed a lot of herbicides, sprayed insecticides back when I was ranching and trying to be commercial and do things the mainstream way. And I can tell you, it is a Pyrrhic fight. It's a fight that can't be won. It can only be stalled. It's a stalemate. So working with nature hopefully can really change the way America functions in our society, and not just maintain the soil that we've been gifted by God with, but actually rebuild it and regrow it and restore the earth to the Eden it can be. And
that's great, David. Yeah. If you're into permaculture, if you realize it or not, you're about healing, right? And who's about healing? He didn't come for the righteous, he came to heal the sick.
Right.
As Jesus Christ. So healing the land and healing people.
So, you know, there's something very therapeutic about having a positive interaction with the natural system. Many people who are secular or don't go to church worship nature. They only get part of the picture by worshiping nature, not worshiping God who created nature.
Well, I mean, obviously from a Christian, Jesus-centered worldview, which is mine, you know, Jesus saved my life, saved my family's life. I literally watched resurrection happen with my own eyes. I would think so, yeah. Now, it's not us to, on the same token, I do take a very sensitive approach and say, hey, look, I'm not going to demonize somebody for what they believe either, right?
Well, not judging people is one of the core tenets of Christianity, of Jesus' teaching anyway.
Yeah, but we're here to worship the Creator, not the creation, you know. It's pretty simple.
Right.
Yeah, and so, you know, the way Jesus puts it is, like we mentioned earlier, love your neighbor. And if you want two really good ways to do that, one is just to love them, especially in their time of need. And the other is an outer body experience, meaning like that first one was an inner body, we're talking to the mind. The second one is we're doing something outside. So we're going, okay, this person has needs, how can I help them? And how can I do that with purity? You know, it's one thing to go and go to the store and buy somebody some groceries, but at the same time, those groceries are laden with chemicals.
Better to show them how to grow food. You know, this has been a phenomenal show today, and there's been so much content, and we have just really run out of time. Please review theschoolofpermaculture.com and come view us again, and have a great day.